My name is Valerie Masumbuko. I'm from Burundi and Rwanda, but I'm speaking to you from Belgium. I'm going to speak about language and travel in Africa. Unfortunately, I won't be putting on the slides, but because I'm simply going to be tapping in certain issues to allow us to start thinking about ways we can operate as we go forward. I'm going to speak about language, and I would like to start by saying jambo, which is hello in Swahili, miriwe, which is hello in Kirundi, and denanish in Ethiopian. Why am I starting by this? It's because I've been traveling around Africa because of my work, and I realized that the minute you take interest in people's language, simply by saying hello and learning to say hello to them, you see the faces of people brighten. Because language, in fact, as Khaled Hussein, an Afghan-born American novelist and physician, said, it is the door. If the culture was a house, then the language would be the key to the front door to all the rooms inside, which really says the language as a very, very important part of the culture. We have to agree that when we talk about and report about the physical beauty of Africa, we all agree, even the Western world agree that Africa is beautiful. It becomes more problematic when we come in the realm of the human aspects of Africa. Africa physical beauty is accepted, and that is why they came to see us in the first place, because they were attracted by the physical beauty. But then when they arrived, they denied some of most of the aspect of the human life of Africans to justify colonization. Why am I talking about language and colonization? I want to give us a background before I can speak on what Taste of Africa Vibes can do as we go forward. The function of language is facilitates communication. There is no community, human community, that can, even in the animal kingdom, that lives without communicating. We probably have the most elaborate communication language as humans, more than the animal kingdom. But we need to have a common language to communicate. So it's a core component of any society because it shapes the collective understandings and narratives. And that's why it gets important, because we spoke earlier, one of the people who spoke, I think the first person, talked about changing the narratives. Changing the narratives can only be done when we understand the place of the language in shaping the common understandings and narratives. It binds the members of the community together. So I would like to also show how the colonial times, colonization, has had consequences, negative consequences on our languages. And I'm citing a Kenyan writer, Kimani Njogu, who tells us that in Sub-Saharan Africa, we have more than 2,000 languages, which constitute 30% of all the languages spoken in the world. Post-independence, first of all, when we were colonized, our language didn't have any place. I had to learn French because I'm first and foremost a French speaker. Okay, I speak my language, my native language. But official language that I spoke in school, in the work, was French. And the people were so happy, and some of them even forbade their children to speak Kirundi at home so that they can speak French and they can appeal to the colonial power. But the problem is that in the post-colonial era, the governance, the African governance that took over, really looked down upon, continued to look down upon the language. Because the thing is, when in a racial relations that we had, they had established that they were superior, and we got brainwashed for some centuries from the slavery and then colonial times that they were superior. So everything that they did was better than what we did. The language they spoke, the clothes they wore, the houses where they lived. So we copied everything, including the language. We had no choice when they were here, but we had a choice to really move forward differently when we got independence. But what we see is that we continue to entertain the behavior that was imparted on us by the colonial powers. So European values and languages were viewed as more sophisticated and carried of universal wisdom. I hear people say most of the time that there is no a school of philosophy in Africa, but that's because nobody took interest at the time to really learn the languages and what it carried as thought of a whole community, of a whole nation, and the countries around the continent. The knowledge, the beliefs of African philosophy were put to halt, and African people, history and narratives were distorted. So this is the situation. I said that I was not going into a full conference presentation. I just want to touch a few points that will allow us, as we go forward, to think what we can do to really emerge of this situation where we were culturally dominated by the colonial powers, who brainwashed us to continue to believe that we are inferior in our culture, in our language, and so on and so forth. When I was in a conference in Turin, I think a month and a half ago, I met a beautiful woman from Niger, not Nigeria, but Niger. And this woman was talking about the desert. She was presenting her home country, and she kept on saying, the desert is waiting for you, the beautiful, and she showed some pictures, really breathtaking pictures. So I was thinking, I want to bring her in Taste of Africa vibes. But then there was one problem. She only spoke French. And in in Taste of Africa vibes, we most of the time speak in English, post in English, do a live in English. So I didn't bring her, but I would like today to kind of touch some of the things that we can do as we really to emerge from the situation that we inherited from slavery time and colonial time. Of course, as the Ojo Lord put it, the master tools cannot dismantle his house. So it is our task. It is not the colonial powers to come and, elevate our culture after, putting it down, because simply the master's tools cannot dismantle his house. It is our task today, and especially Taste of Africa Bites members, because I consider us as travelers with a mission. Before, travel in Africa was out of curiosity, because people were also looking for opportunities. And most of the time when people come out of curiosity, they tend to, the tendency was to mock the local culture, to mock the languages. I remember one of the best singers and activists of South Africa, Miriam Makeba, peace to her soul. She used to sing a song that was, like a language, a Xhosa language that you click.
Yeah.
And it has a title, but that title is clicked. And the white people in South Africa, they will say that it's a click song. It doesn't have any meaning. It took people to take interest into the Zulu language to understand why, after apartheid, the African people, the black people did not kill the white people. It's because there is a profound philosophy that you can only understand when you understand the Zulu language. What dehumanizes you, dehumanizes me. You are because I am. And that's what Archbishop Desmond Tutu used as a platform for reconciliation for the South African. So what can we, as Taste of Africa Vibes, do as we emerge? I'm not suggesting that we forget to speak the languages that were taught to us, but one of the strategies of resistance to oppression is to use what is given by the oppressor and take advantage of it. And here, coming back to the example I just gave you, it would be interesting to communicate in other languages that the daughters and sons of Africa speak in the diaspora. They spoke of Haiti. Haiti speaks French. If we communicate in our group, in our community, also in French, I think we can capitalize on the digital era to do that. We can bring on board the daughters of the sons of Africa to come and join us in this endeavor. If we use Spanish, we can bring the black from Brazil. We can bring the black from Guinea Equatorial. We can bring all those. So what I'm suggesting is that we can actually also instrumentalize these languages that were forced on us to kind of create unity between the sons and the daughters of African descent around the world. The other thing is that we are in troubles, but our fight to regain our dignity is not only in one area, it is also in traveling. Take interest in the local languages. I'm not saying start talking about speaking Swahili, speaking Lingala. At least ask the people about the simple things like, hello, why do they say it the way they say it? And you will come to understand a lot of things. While I was traveling in Ethiopia, I learned that in Amhara, you say denane for the men and the nanish for the women. And that is gender sensitive. We've been educated to believe that there is no gender sensitivity in Africa. Even in their language, they have gender sensitivity. Our journey is more than travel. It is fighting the big movement, claiming back our dignity by restoring the truth about Mama Land. Like I said earlier, if for a long time people travel to Africa out of curiosity, let us travel with a mission. A mission as language is concerned, to kind of elevate some of those languages. Pay attention to what people say. Maybe there is a language that is dying in that country. You can actually bring that story. You can try to understand the mind of the people by asking a few questions in their language. You can let people speak in your documentaries and perhaps do the caption in a foreign language. And I would also like to say that in Africa, not every African knows about the lives of other Africans. So we can also play a role to bring Africans together, like Jibola has done, but even more by, speaking, bringing on board some of the big languages. There are big languages that are spoken by big numbers of people. Let's say, for example, we have Hausa, we have Fulani, we have on my side of heaven, we have Swahili. And Swahili, one of the anecdotes is that Julius Nyerere, who understood very much the importance of culture. Julius Nyerere was the first president, post-independence president of Tanzania. He always spoke Swahili in the United Nations meetings, in the General Assembly meetings at the United Nations. And they had the task to translate what he was saying. Today, the AU is trying to make, if not done yet, Swahili as a common language between Africans. And some of the countries that are outside Africa has taken that opportunity to start putting Swahili as a foreign language in their school curricula. I'm talking here about a country like Colombia. Colombia has officially declared that Swahili is going to be one of the languages that is taught. So what I'm saying here is that we as a community, we cannot change the past, but we can participate in reclaiming our dignity through respecting languages. First of all, when we come across people with accent of foreign language, the tendency is to laugh at them. Like, oh, you have a strong accent. Why can you flip that thought and think that, for example, if the Ivorian Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivorian Coast are speaking French with their beautiful accent, they're actually spicing it. It becomes more interesting because they speak French with African gesture and approaches, and it becomes very, very interesting. The Sierra Leonean, the Pidgin, when they're speaking, I'm gonna call you later. It becomes very interesting. So we can start by not criticizing people who are speaking foreign languages with an accent, including ourselves, including myself. And secondly, when we travel, we can actually take interest in the local languages and try and understand the mind of the people behind the language, because the language really instructs you on the behavior, the social behavior of a group. So maybe Taste of Africa vibes, it is a game changer in the area of travel, because from now on, we're going to travel with a mission. We have started traveling with a mission, but we have to do more to really participate into, to actively participate into reclaiming the dignity of Africa and showing its beauty. The language of the people. Let us start by also elevating it and honoring it, respecting it, and bringing it out in our stories. Thank you.
Woo!